How's it going, my gamers? Welcome back to another Strategy Basics. This is kind of not a part 2, but a part battle from the last week's video that was on the campaign of the basic controls and user interface. It's going to go over the stuff in battle. Again, I'm going to kind of jump around through different scenarios. I'm just in a custom battle here, but there's some stuff that's exclusive to campaign, so I'm going to need to show that. So I'll kind of be jumping around again, but yes, we're going to go over battle. And before you say anything, yes, I have attempted to dye this. We used some dye that is extremely old. We missed quite a lot of spots, and it was meant to be purple, but it's just kind of gone a bit dark, unless it's purple in the right light. So yes, this is why I look like an edgelord. Let's just move on. Let's get into this video. Alright, so the first things first, the basic controls, exactly the same as campaign. You know, W, A, S, D to move around, Q and E to do the rotations, left click to select things, right click to move things, you know, pretty simple stuff, pretty standard. Middle click is now changed because in campaign it was moving around the map, but in this it is like rotating your view like this, and if you use this in conjunction with WASD, you can kind of fly around. Also, if you hold shift, makes you move a little bit quicker. Mouse wheel, zoom in and out. You can also use Z and X if you want to zoom in and out, if you are so inclined. Now we are in some unit controls, so drag right click lets you select the formation, so I can drag very slightly here, make them all line up nice and long like that, or if I want a wider formation, I drag right click a little bit wider and they are laid out like that. It's worth noting that you have to do this left to right. If I did this right to left, you'd see they're all facing the wrong way by these arrows here. If you want to see all the arrows for all your units, by the way, hold spacebar. It shows you every single unit's arrow, so you know exactly where everyone's facing, where all the aiming radiuses are, all that useful stuff. Just going to start the battle here, but we're just going to basically pause this just so I can show you some move commands. So if you have a unit selected, let's say these Empire Knights here, if you right click, it'll just get them to move. By default, they will run as fast as they can. If you hit R, you will see this icon here that goes in, it becomes non-highlighted. That'll mean that they are going slower. If you press R again, they'll start running. If you want a bit more fine control about the route that they take, you hold shift and you drag right click like this, and that yellow arrow there, that is now the path that they will take. So you'll see they're going to go all the way around here. It's a little bit dodgy. The units don't always know how to deal with it, but they're basically going to take that path, and the formation that they land in is pretty spectacular. So yes, use this when you're trying to get an interesting flank, or you just want to queue up a lot of movement orders. You can also hold shift and just add movement orders like this, just separate right click, so point to point. All good fun there. If you just want to cancel all movement orders, hit backspace, that unit will stop. They have stopped in a bit of a ball there, so if you want to neaten them out, just drag them into a formation wherever they are stood. Oh god, our mortars are firing. Whoops. So to pause battles, just press P, pause it, unpause it, press T to cycle through the speed, so you see up in the top right here, we're in fast forward, now we're in super fast forward, and it cycles back around to pause, and then slow motion, and then normal speed. Keep pressing it. I have personally set in my keybinds that Shift T takes me back a stage, so I can go backwards and forwards without having to press anything, which is very, very useful. Highly recommend doing that. If we want to group units together so that we can organize our unit thing down at the bottom here, we can press G. That puts them into a group. So say I wanted my crossbowmen, my swords in a group, and then my lord, my artillery in a group, and then my cav in a group. We can press G. Alternatively, get rid of all those. You can select the units that you want and then select the group you're going to be in by holding Control and pressing a number. So if we press 3, 4, 5, all the way up to 0, obviously you can't really press any higher numbers than that, but I'm pretty sure you can get them into like as many groups as you possibly want, and it just kind of goes on and on from there. Set these guys to be group number 1. Then if I press number 1 on the keyboard, it'll select those guys, so I don't have to find them and click down here. I can just select them like this. If I click this little lock icon, it will lock their formation, so no matter where they move, they'll be exactly as they're laid out now. So you see they've got that little gap there. If I want to move them here, exact same formation. Easy. If you want to zoom all the way out, you can either just zoom forever and it will take you to the tactical map. I personally hate this. I just can't see anything. I can see my unit cards, but I can't see where the unit is. So it's very misleading if you ask me personally. I have never used this, but if it's something that helps you, then go right ahead. Alternatively, you can press tab to cycle between the normal view and the tactical view, if you are so inclined. If we hover over our units here, we'll see some essential statistics, if you will. So that's green bar right there, that's health. Obviously, you've got the name of the unit. The orange bar below, that is how much ammo the unit has. If it's a ranged unit, if it's a melee unit, like these Empire Knights here, won't show anything because they obviously don't have any ammo. It shows you the type of unit that they are, so see their missile cavalry, see their missile infantry. The little horn icon, it tells you how confident the unit is, and this basically means how high their leadership is, so it goes from green to orange to yellow to red, and then once it gets to red, the unit's pretty much running away, and as soon as they are running away, the horn will disappear and it'll be replaced with a flag until they rally, or get off the field, or die. Depending on what faction you're playing, most normal units, when they run out of leadership or run away, undead units like the Vampire Counts, the Vampire Coast, the Tomb Kings, when they run out of leadership, they will start to crumble and take a lot of damage. So they can't run away, but they also take a lot more damage when they run out of leadership. So it's kind of a weird balancing thing there. We can also see how tired the unit is, so we can see here that these are fresh. If we run them around the battlefield for ages, they will go from fresh to tired to exhausted, and when they are in these exhausted states, they will fight much less effectively. They will lose against units of the exact same tier, the exact same health, if those units are less tired than they are, because it just reduces all their stats, makes them way worse. So it's a good thing to try and conserve as much energy as you can before you get into the real meat of the battle. So you don't want to be sprinting your swordsman all over the map if you can wait for the enemy to come to you. You should always advance slowly if you can. If you're getting barraged by artillery, that's a different story. But yes, just conserve energy where you can. One thing I nearly forgot to mention, the number that's inside the green bar there, it's a little hard to see. That is how many models are in this, which basically means all these horses here, there's 60 of them. In this one, there's 59. In this one, there's 90. In this one, there's 120, etc., etc. Obviously, the Balthazar Gelt, there's just one of him. It basically just tells you how many models are left. So you can either have a health bar that's basically 0, but have all your models, which means that those models are going to start dropping like flies. Or you can have a unit that's got hardly any models, but the ones that are there are full health, so it's going to take up a lot more of the bar with even less of the units, if that makes sense. You can also see how leveled up units are. So if these units were leveled up by this XP bar here, you would see that right next to the crossbowmen. I'll come back to this when I load up a campaign, because none of these units are leveled up. Bit of a goof there, but we'll just move on. So these buttons along the bottom here, they do lots and lots and lots of things. I'm just going to go through every single one that I can, just quickly rattle off what they do, and, you know, tell you how to best use them and when you should be using them. So if we select our crossbows and swordsmen here, we can go to this formation button, which allows you to automatically set formation. So if we click missile to the front, we will see that they get a movement order where the missiles are at the front, or we can click melee to the front, in which case they will kind of swap over. It's a good way to just automatically do it. Me personally, I like the finer control of doing it myself, so I would just manually drag these swords in front and then the crossbows to the back. But if you just try and do it very quickly with your entire line, then I can see you using this button, but I have not personally used it, so of course experiment at your own risk. Button here that is a shield icon, that is guard mode. So what this basically means is, so if I told these crossbows to attack this guy here, as soon as this guy starts running, if they're not on guard mode, when he gets out of their range, which is, so if you get out of this range, which is the crossbow range, if these units were not on guard mode, they would continue to chase him. They'd never shoot him because they won't catch up to him enough to set up and shoot. They'd basically just run into the enemy units. They have no regard for what's in front of them. It's pretty annoying. So most ranged units, I would always recommend putting on guard mode unless they're like ranged cavalry or something. Same thing for this artillery here. If something goes out of its range, it will continue to chase it. With melee troops, it's a little bit more complicated. It's basically not if the enemy unit moves away, because they'll continue to attack if it's very nearby. It's more if the unit breaks and like starts properly running away, they won't decide to chase it. So it can be a useful thing if you're trying to play a bit more defensively rather than aggressively chasing down units. So yes, that's what guard mode does. This button here, which is right next to it, toggle fire at will. This basically means these guys will not fire unless I specifically tell them to. So if you see here, as we're set up, they're just randomly shooting. I have not told them to do anything. I've just put them in formation, shoot or whatever. If I turn this off, they won't do that. They will wait for me to specifically click on them, right click on a target before they will attack anything. So if you want to conserve your ammo or take out specific targets, it can be a good thing to turn this off. Generally though, if the enemy has a fat line and they're all basically the same units, I just leave it on fire at will, set them up, let them take out whatever they want. They do a good enough job if, you know, the army isn't too elite and you don't need to focus anything too heavily. This button here is skirmish mode. What this basically means is any ranged units, they will only attack from range if the unit moves up to them and starts to make an advance or gets too close. They'll start running away. I only really use this for things that can fire whilst moving, mostly missile cavalry, because if you use it on your regular ranged infantry, all that happens is they turn their back on the unit, so we can see here, this guy's moving up, and then they run away. So yes, if you use that on, say, these crossbowmen, as soon as the front lines, like if they were fighting right here, these guys would just run away and then they would just face the wrong direction and they'd never turn around unless you manually do it. So I honestly just prefer to leave them off of skirmish, and if they get attacked, I just pull them back, manually put them back into formation. It's much simpler and it's a lot less hassle, and you're not just angry at them facing the wrong direction. At least if they're melee fighting, they're doing something other than just, you know, stood with their backs to all the fighting, which can be very annoying. Artillery units have this specific one that not really any other unit in the game has. It says drop artillery or siege engines. So if you have a unit that's in a tower or a battering ram, they also get this. It basically does, it just tells them to drop their engines, which are these mortars here, and they can just run away, you know, go into melee, do whatever they want. They can always just come back by right-clicking on it with that little hand symbol there. Just show you that again. With that symbol, if you right-click, they will go back onto their engines. If you just right-click near them, it won't do anything. It it won't do the same thing. So just make sure you get that symbol if you want them back on the engines. Now, the engines can be destroyed in combat, so if they lose all their engines, then they kind of lose all use, so you can either throw them into melee or just retreat them from battle. A couple more buttons I have to explain. So as we saw with the group, you can either press G or you can press this one here, which groups them. Very simple. You can also halt any orders, so if I told these guys to go over here, rather than pressing backspace, I can just press halt. Same thing with the move speed thing. I can right click to make them run or make them walk. With ranged units only, you can have this button here that toggles melee mode, so if it is not clicked, they will only shoot from range unless something specifically gets into melee with them, and then they will fight back. If you turn on this, as you can see here, it's on the... Okay, the unit died. That's a bit awkward. I'll be right back. Okay, we are back. So as we can see, these guys haven't got the melee mode button pressed. So if I just click on this, you can see by this targeting cursor thing here, this means that they are going to attack from range. If I enable this or press F, so I can either click or press F, when I have the sword icon, which means that they're going to go into melee rather than shooting. It's only... It is a useful thing to use, but it's only useful on units that can do both range and melee attacks. These are things like most of the Dwarven range units are pretty good in melee. Some Cav units, it's all really down to a unit by unit basis. If you want to know more about units, then you can obviously watch the unit videos that I've made for all of the factions I've covered so far, and you can check out if they're any good in melee. But yes, that's what that button does. So as you can see, we can actually retreat from this battle, and this is very important for something I'm going to show you in battle. But as we can see here, since I could retreat from that battle if I wanted to, as you can see, I can click this one here, which is withdraw, and all that will do, it will send whatever unit I've clicked this on to the edge of the battlefield as fast as they can to retreat from the battle and take no extra casualties than they have already, and they'll just leave the battle and they will survive it completely. Which can be very useful if you are just thinking, you know what, this battle isn't working, you can Control A, withdraw all your units, and they will take no further damage than they have already taken as soon as they get off the battlefield. Which can be very useful, but again, you can only do this in campaign when you have a battle that you can retreat from. If you're in forced march, if you've already retreated once, if you're in a settlement, many of these things you just can't retreat from, and you just have to either watch them die or, you know, try and fight it off as best you can. So it's very useful for that. But again, not something you're going to be using a massive amount. Okay, so we're back with the Empire. I'm just going to jump around between these two battles just so I can show you different things, for, you know, the different parts of the UI. So if we look to the bottom left here, whenever we have a unit selected, it will show us the portrait of that unit. If we have a character selected, like a lord or a hero, it will show us their abilities that are around the side here. This also works for any items that give them abilities. They will show up in the exact same place. This little button here toggles unit stats. I would recommend leaving this on so you can keep track of two very important stats, which is health and leadership. Just going to quickly go over what each stat means in a very, very, very basic sense. So here we go. This green one here, that is the health. This one here, this will tell you how many units are in it. So if you click on these guys, 120, click on Balthazar Gelt, just got one. This unit here is how many kills the unit has. This red one here, if you hover over, will show you how much health that the unit you've got selected can regenerate in the battle. So if you have units like the Vampire Counts that can cast regeneration spells, this is how much health they can do before they reach their cap. This will also be displayed by a bar that will show up on the health bar once they've regenerated the most health that they can. Armor just reduces all damage coming in by a percentage. It is very hard to work out. I have a video about it, so if you want to watch that, I'll put it in the card. Leadership is how confident the unit is. Basically, the higher it is, the more likely it is that your unit will stay in battle. If a unit continues to lose in combat, they will quickly lose leadership, and then when they lose leadership, they will either run away or they will start to crumble, as I mentioned before. Speed is just how fast the unit moves. I'm not sure what units this is, so I'm not sure what 36 actually stands for. So basically, click on your unit, hover over an enemy unit, you can see if you're faster or not, which is very, very useful. Melee attack is basically the chance that this unit has to land an attack. So for high model counts, like the swordsman here, it's going to be fairly low because 32% chance to hit. That's not just for the unit, you know, per tick, it's for every single one of these models. Every time they swing, this is a percentage chance that they will land a hit. Melee defense is the exact same thing, but it's for defense. So if these guys were to attack something, and you know they got that 1 in 32 chance that they land a hit, then if they find themselves, they would have a 1 in 32 chance of completely blocking that hit and taking no damage. Weapon strength is how much damage they do with every single hit. If you hover over this, you get a breakdown of normal and armor piercing damage. Again, this was covered in another video, so click on the card if you want to see that. Charge bonus is how much damage they will do once they clash. So this is obviously a lot higher for cav units because they have a large impact when they hit. So charge bonus is always a good one to be looking out for your cav units, especially shock cavalry that are meant to, you know, do a bit of hammer and anvil and just continually charge in. They're going to be doing way more damage than if they're just sat in the fight. Click on some of our ranged units here. We have ammunition, obviously. How much ammo they have, fairly self-explanatory. Range is how far away they can shoot. Again, fairly self-explanatory. If you want to see, you just hold the spacebar and you can see this yellow circle around these units here. That's how far they can shoot. and missile damage is the exact same as weapon strength, but it's just for the missile. So again, you can hover over it, see how much damage it is going to do in each category, and shots per volley, the reload time, etc, etc. If we look at these symbols on the bottom here, this shows you every single effect that the unit does. So for these guys, they have Vanguard deployment, they can hide in forest, and they can fire whilst moving. If you click on stuff like Lords, it shows you quite a lot of things like resistances, encourage, the spells, abilities, many different things, so it's always worth having a little look if you aren't sure. This larger button here will take us to the unit camera, which looks like this. You can zoom in and out. You can do many fun things. It's very cool because if this unit is moving around, we can kind of follow around, get very cinematic shots, especially if you combine this with K, which removes all of your UI. It's very good for getting some lovely cinematic shots. This can also be accessed by pressing the delete button. As I mentioned before, abilities are around the portrait here. Some like these target the self, some need a target, so always be sure to have a little hover over, see what targets they actually need to go after, so you aren't just clicking on random things hoping for the best. And also it's worth reading to, find out the effects. So this is just going to get us more magic. Stuff in the top left, again, it's pretty similar to how it was in the campaign. You have the escape menu, which you can access by pressing escape. You have the chat, which I have no idea what that does. You have the help pages, which are the same, but they're for battle. And we have the spell browser, which I have never used in the battle, because by this point, you should already know what your spells are doing if, you're this deep into the battle. But if you're not, you can just kind of pause the battle, say, okay, I have the Law of Heavens, okay, these are the spells, this is what they do, this is what the Overcast does. Very exciting. Very useful if you are very new. But once you're in battle, you kind of want to know what you're doing before you get into it. At the centre top here, we have our faction's flag. We have the time remaining in the battle if you have a time limit. And we have the balance of power. This is basically how strong their army is compared to how strong our army is. It's the same thing that you see in the campaign before you get into battle, but this adapts over time. So say this enemy overcame the odds and uses no stat to take lots of us out. And even in it, this red bar would start to fill up more and more, or should I say, the yellow bar would start to get depleted more and more, and it would slowly, they would overtake, and then eventually, when we have, completely confirmed victory, it would just overtake this entire bar, and you would lose, or win, depending on how it goes. Top right, we have speed control, so as I said before, you can go through the different speed states, slow motion, normal, fast forward, and faster forward. You can pause. You also have the minimap here. You can click on this to move around. It will not rotate your view, it will just move you in the same angle to wherever you have clicked, so that's kind of useful if that's what you're into. So on the bottom right here, we have the magic. We can hover over this, see how much magic we're getting per second, and how much we have in reserve. Now, this can be a little complicated. What you basically need to know is the power is how much magic you have available now. So if we click on Balthazar Gelt here, we can see, we can cast all these spells because we have plenty of magic. The power reserve is how much you have in reserve. All you need to know is you get 1 power from your reserve added to your current power every single increment of this. So it says 1 power per 6 seconds. So every 6 seconds, we're going to get 1 added to our power from our reserve. I don't believe this pauses. So if you aren't using this power, your reserve is just going to kind of go to waste. So when you get to, 28 power, you're going to want to start using some spells. Not just waste them, just use them so that you are getting the most out of your magic. Of course, some spells can improve how fast you regenerate magic, and some can add to your reserve. So of course, read all those and use them when you need to. When you have a spellcaster selected, it will show the spells that they have available around the magic icon here, so we can click on each of these, and if we hover over, it will kind of show us in this thing here, how much magic each one is going to use. So this one will use 18, so that's quite a lot. This one will only use 6, so it's not as much. Very simple to understand. This bar here, by the way, this is just the magical reserve, just shown as a bar. Very simple. So to use a spell, you just click on it. So this is a bombardment spell, and it's targeted just on the ground like this. Of course, you need to read up on what is targeted on what. So this one can be targeted on ground or enemies directly, and this one can be targeted on self or allies. So you just need to have a little read, see who you should be using it on, and then use it. If you want to overcast it, which basically is just a more powerful version of the spell, which you can see in my spell guides, you simply click, then click again, and there you have it. You have the overcast one selected, and you can just target it exactly the same as you would normally. Alternatively, if you don't like clicking, you can press Alt and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 to select your spells. And again, with the overcast, you just press it twice, and there you have the overcast selected. I personally just prefer clicking just because it's on screen. I don't need to do some spaghetti with my fingers. I think it personally works a little bit better that way. But of course, it's there if you need it. One final thing to note about these spells, I'm just in a campaign save here, just so I can show you what I mean. If you have access to more than one law, or just a whole bunch of spells that don't fit onto one wheel, because only 6 can, press this arrow here, and this takes you to your other law. This one is just kind of 2 versions of the Law of Vampires, but I can click between them like this, and get to the different spells, which is very useful. And one last thing to note is if you have any faction abilities, like the Vampire Coast here, I have the Zuffbar, 42 Pounders, and the second verse of the Sea Shanty. You can access them from the right here. No matter what faction you're playing, they will appear on the right. So if you've got the Black Ark upgrades, these will appear on the right, all of them will appear here, and then again, it's just as simple as casting a spell. Click on them, click where you want to put them. Something like this just affects all your units, and then you just click them, they're active. Very useful indeed. And that's everything. That's everything you need to know about the UI and the basic controls in the battle map. If I've missed anything, be sure to leave a comment so that we can help everyone become epic gamers just like us. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave it a like. I would appreciate that very, very much. If you want to see more videos like this, maybe click that subscribe button, stay up to date. It is free after all, so I'd highly encourage it if you want to see more videos. I really want to do something other than Total War. I do love Total War and Total War Warhammer, but I don't want to burn out of the game, so I want to do some more variety. So prepare to see some of that in the coming weeks. If you don't enjoy it, I'm very sorry. I hope you all forgive me. But yes, that should be coming very soon. So yes, that's everything from me, I guess. If you want to get in touch, any questions you want to ask, join the Discord. Either ask me, ask other people in the Discord. We're all very happy to help you. It's very, very casual, very, very friendly. I tolerate no saltiness other than my own. So be sure to hop in there and say hello. I would appreciate that very much. But yes, for now, I was COLONELDAMNEDERS, and I'll see you next turn.